What happens when diplomatic privilege collides head-on with American justice? Ambassador Volkov's son, Dmitri Vulkoff, walked into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom with the confidence of a man who believed the law couldn't touch him. A custom European suit, a Swiss watch, Italian leather shoes polished to perfection, and in his hand the ultimate symbol of untouchability, a diplomatic passport embossed with the golden seal of the Russian Federation. His smirk said everything. "I'm protected by international law. Your little courtroom means nothing to me." Because his father, Ambassador Sergey Volkov, wasn't just any man. He was Russia's official representative to the United States. 30 years in diplomacy, 30 years of immunity, 30 years of believing that power could excuse arrogance. But that illusion shattered the moment Dmitri Vulkoff decided to drive 80 miles per hour through Providence, ran a red light, and struck a man crossing legally at a crosswalk. The victim, Michael Torres, a 34-year-old elementary school teacher, was thrown 15 feet, left bleeding in the street with a broken leg and internal injuries. And Dmitri? He didn't even stop. He looked at the injured man, got back in his car, and drove straight to the Russian embassy, where he hid behind two words he thought would save him forever: diplomatic immunity. But that morning in Providence, he met a different kind of judge, one who doesn't bow to titles, treaties, or threats, one who believes justice has no borders. Judge Frank Caprio looked that young man in the eye and said, "You may think your passport protects you from American law, but it won't protect you from accountability." What happened next would reach the U.S. State Department, shake international relations, and mark the moment when justice refused to kneel to privilege. Before we dive into this unbelievable case, less than 5% of you watching are subscribed. If you believe no flag, no fortune, and no family name should place anyone above the law, hit subscribe now and join us, because this is Case Closed, where real stories prove that power may travel far, but justice always catches up. It's Tuesday morning at 9:45 a.m. in Providence Municipal Court. There are federal marshals in the gallery, State Department observers, and Russian embassy representatives. This isn't normal. The bailiff announces, "The State of Rhode Island versus Dmitri Sergeyevich Volkov." Dmitri walks in with 3 attorneys. Lead counsel Marcus Whitmore, an expensive international law specialist. Judge Caprio looks up. "Good morning, Mr. Volkov." Dmitri gives a slight nod. "Good morning, Judge." "No, Your Honor. No proper decorum." Judge Caprio notices, but maintains composure. "Mr. Volkov, you're charged with reckless driving, leaving the scene of an accident involving serious injury and failure to render aid. Before we proceed, I want to address your diplomatic immunity claim. Mr. Whitmore." Whitmore stands. "Your Honor, my client is the son of Ambassador Sergey Volkov. Under the Vienna Convention, Article 37, family members of diplomatic agents enjoy the same immunities. Therefore, this court lacks jurisdiction." Judge Caprio reviews the diplomatic passport. "Mr. Whitmore, I'm familiar with the Vienna Convention. However, diplomatic immunity exists to facilitate diplomatic functions, not to shield criminal behavior. With respect, Your Honor, the immunity is comprehensive. My client cannot be prosecuted in American courts." Dmitri leans back confidently. He knows how this ends. Diplomatic immunity has gotten him out of everything before. Judge Caprio looks at Dmitri. "Mr. Volkov, do you understand the charges?" Dmitri's response is dismissive. "I understand your court believes it has charges, but as my
attorney explained, this is jurisdictional. Under international law, you cannot prosecute me. This hearing should not be happening. Mr. Volkov, a man was seriously injured. You left him bleeding on the street. You don't think that warrants explaining what happened?" Dmitri shrugs. "Judge, I sympathize with Mr. Torres's injuries, but my status under international law is clear. This court has no authority to compel me. So, you are invoking diplomatic immunity to avoid explaining why you left an injured man. I am asserting my legal rights under international treaty. There is a difference. The prosecutor stands. Your Honor, the state disagrees. When a crime of this severity occurs, there are mechanisms to challenge immunity. Whitmore responds immediately. Diplomatic immunity can only be waived by the sending state. Russia has explicitly refused. This court is powerless. Dmitri speaks up. Judge, perhaps we can end this now. You have no jurisdiction. This is international law. My father represents the Russian Federation. I am protected by treaties your government considers binding. Can we conclude? Judge Caprio's voice is firm. Mr. Volkoff, before I make any determination, I'd like to review the evidence. Regardless of diplomatic status, understanding the facts is important. The monitors show traffic camera footage, a busy Providence intersection at 3:47 p.m. Children walking home from school. Then, a black Mercedes speeds through at 80 miles per hour, runs a red light without slowing, and strikes Michael Torres in the crosswalk. Michael is thrown 15 feet, landing hard. The Mercedes stops 50 feet away. Dmitri gets out, walks back toward Michael, lying bleeding on the pavement. He stands 10 feet away as pedestrians run to help. Someone yells, "You hit him! Help him!" Dmitri pulls out his phone, appears to take a photo, looks at the crowd, then walks back to his car and drives away. The entire interaction takes less than 90 seconds. Judge Caprio pauses the video. The courtroom is silent. Dmitri examines his watch. Mr. Volkoff, that video shows you hitting a pedestrian at extreme speed, stopping briefly, looking at him injured, and driving away without rendering aid? Is that accurate? Dmitri's attorney starts to respond, but Dmitri raises his hand. Judge, I was driving. There was an impact. I stopped to assess. Other people were calling for help. There was nothing medical I could provide, so I left. This is not a crime in Russia. We're not in Russia, Mr. Volkoff. No, but I am Russian. I am the son of a Russian ambassador. Russian law applies to me, even on American soil. This is what diplomatic immunity means. Subscribe to Judge Stories if you believe diplomatic immunity should not protect hit-and-run drivers who leave victims bleeding on American streets. Ms. Walsh, you mentioned body camera footage? Yes, Your Honor. Officer Martinez at the Russian Embassy. The video shows Officer Martinez at the embassy gates. The black Mercedes is visible inside. Providence Police, I need to speak with the driver regarding a hit-and-run. Embassy security responds, this is Russian sovereign territory. You cannot enter. Dmitri appears holding his diplomatic passport. Sir, you were involved in a hit-and-run. A pedestrian was seriously injured. Come with me to the station. Dmitri holds up his passport. Officer, I am Dmitri Vulkoff, son of Ambassador Sergey Volkov. This grants me diplomatic immunity. I am not subject to arrest or prosecution. Sir, someone was seriously hurt. You left the scene. Dmitri's smile becomes condescending. Officer, international law is very clear. I have complete immunity. You cannot arrest me. You cannot charge me. You cannot detain me for questioning.
Without Russian Federation consent, which you will not receive. Sir, don't you want to explain what happened? Don't you care that someone was hurt? Officer, many people are hurt daily in traffic accidents. It is unfortunate, but my status does not change based on accident severity. I am protected by treaties your government signed. This is not my rule. This is your government's rule. So you're refusing to cooperate? I am asserting my legal rights. There is no investigation that can proceed against me. Your judge, your prosecutors, your entire legal system has no jurisdiction. I could walk out onto that street right now, and you could not touch me. That is what diplomatic immunity means. Sir, a man is in the hospital with serious injuries. Dmitri's voice becomes cold. Then perhaps that man should have been more careful crossing. I had the right of way. You ran a red light. According to American police, American cameras, these do not apply to me. I answer only to Russian law, and Russia has declined to waive my immunity. So, Officer Martinez, unless you want an international incident, I suggest you leave and inform your superiors that this matter is closed. Sir, this isn't over. Dmitri laughs. Officer, it never began. You have no authority here. Go tell your judge that Dmitri Vulkoff says hello and that he can do nothing. Nothing at all. The video ends. The courtroom sits in horrified silence. Dmitri appears completely comfortable. Judge Caprio removes his glasses slowly. Mr. Vulkoff, you just watched yourself hit a pedestrian at high speed, flee, and mock the investigating officer. You showed no remorse. Is that accurate? Dmitri nods confidently. Yes, Judge. I am above American law. Not because I am arrogant, but because international treaties say I am.
Countries sign those treaties. So yes, I am above your jurisdiction. This is legal fact. Judge Caprio looks at the documentation. Mr. Volkov, you're correct that diplomatic immunity is serious legal doctrine. However, you're wrong about one critical thing. Dmitri's confidence wavers. What is that? You're wrong in thinking immunity is the same as impunity. Diplomatic immunity facilitates diplomatic relations, not allows diplomats to commit crimes with no consequences. Your Honor, the Vienna Convention does not include that distinction. The immunity is absolute. Mr. Whitmore, I'm aware of what the Vienna Convention says. I'm also aware of what basic human decency requires. Mr. Volkov, do you know what happened to Mikhail Torres? Dmitri shrugs. I assume he went to a hospital. Mikhail Torres is a 34-year-old elementary school teacher. He teaches 4th grade. He was walking home from school when you hit him at 80 miles per hour. He has a broken femur, 3 fractured ribs, internal bleeding, and traumatic brain injury. He spent 2 weeks in intensive care. He will likely never walk without a limp. He may never return to teaching. And you left him bleeding. Dmitri's expression doesn't change. This is unfortunate, but my diplomatic status means your court cannot hold me responsible. Judge Caprio's voice becomes quiet. Mr. Volkov, I've been on this bench over 30 years. I've shown mercy to people who made mistakes. I've given second chances to those who showed remorse. But I've never seen someone use international law as a weapon to avoid basic human accountability. Judge Caprio picks up his phone. Please get me the United States Department of State, Office of Foreign Missions, immediately. Tell them it's Judge Frank Caprio regarding a diplomatic immunity case requiring urgent review. The courtroom erupts. Dmitri's smile disappears. His attorney looks shocked. Your Honor, you cannot involve the State Department in a municipal proceeding. Whitmore. When someone uses diplomatic immunity to avoid accountability for a hit and run that nearly killed an American citizen, it becomes federal concern. The State Department can review immunity claims and request waivers. Dmitri stands. Judge, you cannot do this. This is interference with diplomatic relations. My father will file a protest. Your father can file whatever he wants, Mr. Volkoff, but a man is in a hospital bed because of your actions, and you've shown zero remorse. Within minutes, Judge Caprio is connected to Deputy Assistant Secretary Catherine Morrison. The conversation is on. Speaker, this is Secretary Morrison. Judge Caprio, yes, Madam Secretary, I have a diplomatic immunity case that warrants State Department review. Judge Caprio explains the hit-and-run, serious injuries, Dmitri's lack of remorse, Russia's refusal to waive immunity. He requests formal State Department review and diplomatic request to Russia for waiver. Judge Caprio, you're requesting the United States formally ask Russia to waive diplomatic immunity for Ambassador Volkov's son. That's correct, Madam Secretary. This is highly unusual. We generally don't intervene unless there are extraordinary circumstances. Madam Secretary, a hit-and-run leaving a teacher with permanent injuries followed by the perpetrator mocking law enforcement qualifies as extraordinary. Pause. Judge Caprio, I'll be frank. Russia will almost certainly refuse. I understand, but it's important to make the request anyway. If diplomatic immunity shields Mr. Vulkoff, it should be after thorough review. Give me 24 hours. I'll review the evidence and confer with colleagues. If warranted, I'll personally oversee the waiver request process. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Judge Caprio looks at Dmitri. Mr. Vulkoff, this hearing is continued for 72 hours pending State Department review. You are not to leave Rhode Island.
My travel. My diplomatic status means I can travel freely. Mr. Whitmore, if your client attempts to leave the country, I will request his diplomatic passport be flagged at all ports of exit. Dmitri, pale. This is outrageous. You have no authority. Mr. Volkoff, I have authority to bring diplomatic immunity abuse to federal attention, which is exactly what I've done. Court is adjourned. Over the next 72 hours, the State Department reviews all footage, interviews Michael Torres, consults international law experts. Then they formally request Russia waive diplomatic immunity for Dmitri Vulkoff. Russia initially refuses, but the story goes viral. Footage of Dmitri hitting Michael and mocking Officer Martinez gets millions of views. Public outrage builds. Congressional representatives ask questions about immunity abuse. The Russian embassy receives hundreds of protest calls. Then the breakthrough comes from Ambassador Sergey Volkov himself. 72 hours later, court reconvenes. But there is an additional person, Ambassador Sergey Volkov. The distinguished man in his 60s approaches the bench. Your Honor, I am Ambassador Sergey Volkov. I request permission to address the court. Ambassador Volkov, you're welcome to speak. Your Honor, I have served the Russian Federation as a diplomat for 32 years. I have represented my country with honor in 8 nations. I have never been more ashamed than I am today. Dmitri looks at his father in shock. I have watched the videos of my son's actions. I have read Mr. Torres' medical reports. I have seen my son mock American law enforcement and shown no remorse for nearly killing an innocent man. This is not the son I raised. This is not what Russian diplomacy stands for. He looks at his son. Dmitri, you have dishonored me. You have dishonored Russia. You have dishonored diplomatic service. Diplomatic immunity protects diplomats doing
their jobs, not criminal behavior. The ambassador pulls out an official document. Your Honor, I personally delivered this from the Russian Foreign Ministry. After reviewing this case, and at my personal request, the Russian Federation is voluntarily waiving diplomatic immunity for my son for purposes of American prosecution related to the hit-and-run. The courtroom explodes. Dmitri jumps up. Father, you cannot do this! Ambassador Volkov's response is cold. I am not ending your protection, Dmitri. You ended it when you hit that man and drove away. When you showed the world you believe yourself above human decency. Russia does not protect criminals. We protect diplomats. You are not a diplomat. You are a disgrace. Judge Caprio accepts the waiver. Ambassador Vulkoff, this is unprecedented. Thank you for your integrity. Your Honor, one more thing. Effective immediately, I am resigning as ambassador to the United States. I have served over 3 decades.
but I cannot continue after my son's actions brought such shame. My letter of resignation has been delivered to Moscow. Ambassador, that's not necessary. It is necessary. My son used his connection to me to commit a crime and avoid accountability. That is on me. I failed as a father. I failed to teach him privilege comes with responsibility. Now I am ensuring he faces the consequences he deserves. Ambassador Vulkoff leaves with dignity. Dmitri stands alone now, without diplomatic immunity, without protection, without any shield. Judge Caprio looks at Dmitri. Mr. Vulkoff, now that your immunity has been waived by your own government, this court has full jurisdiction. How do you plead? Dmitri's attorney tries. Your Honor, we request time. No. Dmitri interrupts quietly. No more lawyers. No more delays. He looks at Judge Caprio. Guilty, Your Honor. Mr. Vulkoff, for leaving the scene
Of an accident causing serious injury, I'm sentencing you to 2 years in a Rhode Island correctional facility. Dmitri goes white. Additionally, you're fined $100,000 paid directly to Michael Torres for medical expenses. You're permanently banned from receiving any diplomatic credentials or immunity in the future. Finally, upon completion of your sentence, you will be deported to Russia and permanently barred from re-entering the United States. Dmitri collapses. 2 years in prison, $100,000, permanent ban from America. His life of privilege is over. 3 months later, Michael Torres is released from the hospital. He walks with a cane now and will forever, but he's alive. He returns to teaching 4th grade. When asked about Dmitri's sentence, Michael says, "I'm not happy anyone is in prison, but I'm grateful that justice works, even when it has to cross international borders." Judge Caprio proved that no one, regardless of their diplomatic passport, is above basic human decency. 2 years later, Dmitri is released and deported to Russia. He will never return to America. But something changed in those 2 years. The arrogance that once defined Dmitri Vulkoff is gone. Today, he lives in Moscow, working with traffic safety organizations, speaking publicly about the dangers of reckless driving and the true limits of diplomatic protection. He no longer hides behind a passport. He stands behind his mistakes. Last month, he wrote a letter to Michael Torres, the man whose life he nearly destroyed. Mr. Torres, I know you may never forgive me, but because of Judge Caprio, my father, and an American justice system that refused to let me hide, I finally understand what I took from you. I can't undo what happened, but I can spend the rest of my life trying to make sure no one repeats my mistakes.
Michael never replied, but he still keeps that letter, folded, worn, and tucked inside his desk drawer, because it reminds him that real justice doesn't end with punishment. It ends with transformation. That day in Providence didn't just change one man's fate. It defined the legacy of Judge Frank Caprio, a legacy built on compassion, courage, and the belief that the law isn't just about what's legal, it's about what's right. Because in Judge Caprio's courtroom, justice never seeks revenge, it seeks redemption. If this story moved you, hit like to honor those who stand for justice when it's hardest, and hit subscribe to Case Closed, where every story reminds the world that humanity and accountability can walk hand in hand. Tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? Because no matter where you are, Judge Caprio's legacy reminds us that real justice doesn't fade. It lives on, one act of integrity at a time.